Number 8. Zachary Bowen. One night in October 2006, police officers got a distress call. When they arrived at the Omni Royal Orleans Hotel in Louisiana, they discovered the dead body of 28-year-old Zachary Bowen on the top layer of the building's parking garage. The team then searched the corpse for any clues as to what happened. And inside Zach's back pants pocket, they pulled out a small note. It read, "This is not accidental. I had to take my own life to pay for the one that I took." The message went on to describe an address where the body of Zach's girlfriend, Addie Hall, was located. The scene at 826 N Rampant was deeply disturbing. The couple's small apartment was positioned right above a voodoo temple, and the inside walls were plastered with spray paint, self-deprecating messages from Zach, and instructions for the man to call his ex-wife. He apparently wanted someone to tell her that he still loved her deeply. However, the most disturbing part of all was Addie's severed head resting in a large pot on the stove. In a smaller pan beside it, her feet and hands were also laid out. When investigators opened the oven, they found more body parts that looked as if they'd been seasoned to eat. While Zach and Addie's relationship started out sweet, the reality of life quickly hit them when they both struggled with mental illness. After being abused in her youth, Addie turned to alcohol and other harmful substances to cope with her PTSD. Zach served time in the military overseas in countries like Iraq. There, he witnessed an innocent family who he'd befriended get bombed and died right in front of him. He too turned toward the bottle for his worries. According to their landlord, on October 4th of that year, just one day before Addie was killed, Zach asked for her name to be taken off their lease. He believed that she'd broken his trust and slept with another man. Since he didn't want to get roped into a couple's dispute, the landlord told Zach to sort the situation out himself. And, in a way, he did. At the crime scene, police found an 8-page letter Zach wrote, describing exactly what he did to Addie. He used a hacksaw to dismember the young woman in the bathroom, before waiting a few days to decide what to do with her remains. In that short time, he lived life as if nothing had happened. His friends claimed that nothing seemed wrong, and that Zach actually seemed in a better mood than usual. In the end, Zach thought it would be easier to get rid of Addie's body if he cooked it. This task must have been harder than initially believed, since he ended up taking his own life. There have been many theories that have cropped up to try and explain the severity of this case. Some who believe in the occult think that the voodoo temple below the couple's apartment played a role in the horrific incident. Others think that both Zach and Addie's struggles with sobriety and battling their inner demons ultimately caused this nightmarish event. Number 7. Benjamin Beale. On December 23, 2021, a New Orleans man reported his wife, 36-year-old Julia Dada, missing. At the time, the couple were separated, and Julia had recently moved in with her new boyfriend, 34-year-old Benjamin Beale. As soon as investigators heard that the woman was missing, they went to Benjamin's home and thoroughly searched the property. Strangely, they found a long string of extension cords that led to an old locked bus behind the residence. Inside, the cords were connected to a large freezer. It took some time, but once officers were able to get in and open the freezer, they found their missing person. Julia's dismembered torso was stuffed into the container without a head. Near the remains, there was also a power saw soaked in blood, a pair of goggles, and a bunch of plastic bags. The corpse had obviously been mutilated after the victim's death as well. Inside Benjamin's house, they found a fully fledged meth lab. According to Julia's estranged husband, she was addicted to the substance when she decided to leave her 2 children behind for her boyfriend, who was likely her dealer. When Benjamin was initially questioned about his lover, he told authorities that he thought she overdosed, possibly on purpose. Investigators weren't convinced by this flimsy story, so they arrested Benjamin on suspicion of murder. He's also been charged for the meth lab, obstruction of justice, and assault from his ex-wife. She says that the man was physically abusive during their marriage, mostly when he was high on his own product. The woman even said that he'd made threats to kill and cut her into pieces in the past. In court on May 17, 2022, Benjamin Beale pleaded not guilty to all of the charges brought against him. It's unclear where this case currently stands, but the suspect may be receiving help for his mental illness before the trial proceeds. Number 6. MARIEL VERGARA. Some people are too comfortable in public spaces. Take 27-year-old MARIEL VERGARA, for example, who in April 2020 went to the Louis Armstrong International Airport dressed only in her birthday suit. She marched right up to the counter for Spirit Airlines and asked if she could book a ticket. Immediately, the desk agents were shocked and weren't sure what exactly they should do. They politely told MARIEL that she wouldn't be able to travel that day if she stayed naked. In response, the woman acted as if she was offended by them telling her to get dressed. She refused to put on anything and wouldn't leave the counter without a ticket. It seemed like she changed her tune though after law enforcement was called. By the time an officer got to the scene, MARIEL had changed into an incredibly short dress. It barely covered anything, and everyone could see that she was still completely nude underneath it, with no undergarments. The cop told MARIEL that she had to leave the building if she wasn't going to comply with the rules, but once again she refused. This resulted in multiple officers struggling to put her into handcuffs. In the end, she received charges of resisting arrest, obscenity, simple battery, and more. She was held in the Jefferson Parish Correctional Center on a $5,000 bond, but unfortunately, there have been few updates since the story broke. While it's great that MARIEL loves herself and her body, going to a public place naked, especially an airport where young children could be, probably wasn't the best decision. Number 5. MANSOUR MBODJ. Mardi Gras is one of the biggest celebrations New Orleans is known for. It often involves elaborate parades and festivals to celebrate the history of the city, as well as spring and fertility. The party lasts 2 weeks, starting in January and ending on Fat Tuesday. During that time, certain streets of the city are packed to the brim with tourists and locals. Tragically though, one man decided to take advantage of everyone's high spirits for his own sinister agenda in February 2023. 21-year-old Mansour MBODJ was accused of openly firing a gun into a crowd of people during a Mardi Gras parade. He fatally shot one person while 4 other victims were injured. The youngest that was hit was a little 4-year-old girl, and the slain victim was a young teenager. Luckily, everyone seems to have made a successful recovery after being treated in the hospital. The sound of bullets rang through the air as the first shot fired at around 9:30 p.m. Due to the large number of people out and about, there were already police officers near the scene. As soon as they heard the commotion, they responded within minutes. Mansour was quickly taken into custody after the shooting on charges of second-degree murder. There have been few updates on this case, but the investigation is ongoing. The New Orleans Police Department Superintendent Michelle Woodfork told media outlets that they cannot definitively say who was responsible for the mass shooting yet. During Mardi Gras, officers confiscated over 100 firearms along the parade routes, making it difficult to pin the crime on Mansour. Have you ever been to Mardi Gras? What was it like? Tell us in the comments down below. If you like this video so far, be sure to subscribe to the channel and join the Badger fam. Number 4. Rodney Hunt. During the summer of 2022, a man from New Orleans named Rodney Wayne Hunt was arrested and accused of assaulting a woman. It's believed that the 51-year-old forced the victim to take what's been described as a meth pill. The woman has since come forward, although she hasn't been named to protect her identity. She claimed that the suspect got angry after she told him she wasn't going to do any drugs with him. After this, Rodney shoved the pill down her throat, forcing her to swallow it. But sadly, that's not all he did to her. Once he knew she'd taken the drug, he splashed her with dirty mop water while they were out on his patio. Then, when she was already soaked, Rodney grabbed a bottle of bleach and poured it over her head. It trickled down her skin and left burn marks everywhere, even on her face. As if that wasn't humiliating enough, the man ordered her to strip naked and act like a monkey for him. Terrified, the victim complied as Rodney hurled vicious insults at her, even hitting her a few times with a mop. But the worst was yet to come. After the degrading performance, the man bent the poor woman over and shoved the end of the mop where the sun doesn't shine. He then forced her to scrub her private parts until they were sore and raw, all while he recorded everything on camera. Apparently, Rodney told the woman to make up a story for the cops, but she told them the truth. Once confronted by law enforcement, he admitted to hitting the victim but denied the more serious claims. According to the case's last update, he was being held in the Escambia County Jail. Number 3. David KLEIN. It's a sad fact that homeless people are treated poorly by society. Many of them are looked down upon or stereotyped for things that they often can't control. But sometimes the worst treatment comes from others in the homeless population. In February 2018, the body of 28-year-old Henry Dunaway was discovered on fire behind a New Orleans store. The fire department was called to put out the blaze. Not long after, a 53-year-old man named David KLEIN was taken into custody after several witnesses told police officers that he tried to run away from the crime scene. According to them, David was the only person who'd been near the body during the fire. When investigators looked further into this incident, they found security footage of the man fleeing the murder scene. It's believed that he set Dunaway's makeshift cardboard shelter on fire while the man was sound asleep. David himself was also homeless, and it's not clear what his motive was for killing the victim. At first, prosecutors charged him with murder, but the sentence was lessened following a plea deal that Dunaway's family members agreed to. The killer was ultimately found guilty of manslaughter and sentenced to 40 years behind bars. Number 2. Travis Clark. We often think of priests and bishops as holy men who are the messengers of their chosen gods. With this polished reputation, it's surprising when a man of faith goes against his religious ideals. In 2020, a Catholic priest in New Orleans was arrested for obscenity after participating in intimate acts with 2 women inside a church. Travis Clark was relieved of his position within the organization after the news broke. Not only did he engage in intercourse inside the holy building, but he recorded everything. The women wore dominatrix costumes in the video footage as they did their business on the church's altar. Apparently, they were caught in the act by a shocked parishioner who'd come to pray. Luckily, Clark wasn't sentenced to any jail time, but he was convicted for his actions. He was given 3 years of probation, during which he'll be closely supervised. In interviews since, he claims that he's no longer a religious man, but he still believes in some kind of higher power. The church he once worked at made a statement, saying that they burnt the altar that the explicit acts took place on. It seems everyone in this situation would like to move on, despite the shocking nature of what happened. Number 1. Janae Pedesclos. On August 7th, 2022, a New Orleans mother allegedly stabbed her 2 young children before filming a video of herself crying and posting it to social media. 31-year-old Janae Pedesclos was wearing a bloody tank top in the disturbing footage. She cried to her followers, saying, "I'm done. My children are dead. I'm done. I'm done with life." The woman also claimed that everything was Jermaine Roberts' fault, the father of her children. The man was caught on camera grabbing his 2 injured kids from the crime scene. He reportedly had to break through the window of Janae's house so he could get to his 4-year-old and 2-year-old as they were in critical condition. Once he had them, Jermaine drove straight to a medical facility. Sadly, the couple's 4-year-old didn't survive the attack. A few months before, Jermaine filed to get joint custody of the children. He made claims that Janae wasn't providing them with a stable or healthy environment. This may have contributed to the woman's mental breakdown. While she's been charged for her actions, the case is still playing out since Janae had to get screened for her mental state. So, until more updates are released, we'll have to just wait and see what happens. Have you ever been to New Orleans? Tell us about it in the comments down below. We love hearing from our amazing viewers. If you enjoyed today's video, leave a like and make sure you subscribe to the channel. Thanks so much for watching, and we'll see you next time on The Bad Badger.